Welcome back to Zero Sum Gaming here at the Culture Cache. We received a donation this week that is rather touching because it comes from Brent in North Dakota. I'm touched to know that our reach extends so far. Brent sent us Kung Fu for the NES. You can approximate the age of this game just by the fact that it's a black box NES title. Be sure to do a good warm-up beforehand and don't play on a full stomach. Ready? Don't you just love badly dubbed martial arts movies? I know I do. We're going to do things a little bit differently this week. Because this game is so short, I'm not going to make any edits to my gameplay footage. Rather, I'm going to play one entire game and talk over all my raw gameplay footage. It's not quite going to be a long play, but this video will be in the vein of a long play if you're used to videos like that. No, I'm not going to give you any over-the-top reactions for effect or anything like that. I'm going to tell you all about this game in my typical fashion, but you will see the whole game, multiple times in fact, because it is very short. This game is based on the arcade title Kung Fu Master, which had a sequel called Vigilante. Other than the graphics and audio, very little is different from Irem's arcade game and the NES version. As is apparently so often the case with games I cover, the name of the game alone presents a chasm we have to cross. The NES game is called Kung Fu, while the original arcade is known as Kung Fu Master. Both of these games were known as Spartan X in Japan. From here, the name scheme gets even more complicated. Speaking of badly dubbed martial arts movies, Spartan X is also the name of an early 80s Jackie Chan flick. This film is also known as Wheels on Meals. Yes, you heard me right. Wheels on Meals, not Meals on Wheels. Hilariously, Golden Harvest, the distributor of this movie, was illogically afraid of titles that started with the letter M. No joke! So they forced the name change to the clunky Wheels on Meals. One reason for this strange hatred of the letter M was the failure of the movie Megaforce, starring the inimitable Barry Bostwick. Wheels on Meals is about two brothers who run a lunch truck. Thomas, played by Jackie Chan, uses his skateboard to deliver food to the customers. The brothers encounter Sylvia and they are immediately smitten with her. Sylvia, as it turns out, is an heiress and a thief. She's just ripped off a guy and hides out in their lunch truck. They let her stay the night, and they awaken to discover that they too have had their money jacked. Soon after, they encounter Moby. No, not that Moby. This Moby is a mostly useless detective played by Sammo Hung. Sadly, Sammo Hung makes no appearance in this game. It would have been amazing to have made him player 2. So what does all this have to do with the game? Honestly, nothing aside from the characters, and only two of them at that. There is no Mr. X in the movie. While Thomas and his brother David must go to a castle and battle evildoers to rescue Sylvia, it's not really anything like the game. That's how it was so easy for Irem to strip away the title, and nothing more, in order to scrub the movie tie-in. It's funny when you think about it. If you talk to most people about that Jackie Chan game on the NES, most of them will instantly think of Jackie Chan's Action Kung Fu instead of this game, even though this game is 5 years older. Granted, unless you're in the know, it's easy to overlook that Jackie Chan plays the main character of Kung Fu, nor does this game bear his name, but it still strikes me as humorous. Okay, enough of all that movie talk. Let's get into the game. It is a very short and simple game. Frankly, I've almost beaten it already. The D-pad moves you left and right when you press in those respective directions, and it also lets you duck by pressing down and jump by pushing up. Many people criticize the use of up to jump, but I don't really think it's that bad. Honestly, it helps out quite a bit on stage 4. Rarely do I accidentally jump, but it does happen on occasion. Still, it's nowhere near game-breaking. The B button kicks, and when you are first starting out, this should be the button you use almost all the time. Kicks have longer range than punches, and both attacks do the same damage, so unless you really know what you're doing, stick to kicks outside of very few situations. You can kick from standing, crouching, and jumping positions. Unfortunately, this is where some noticeable control issues come in. As I said, I don't really mind up to jump, but the timing of a jump kick is oddly specific. If you push the button too soon, it will delay for a second before executing the move, but if you're too late, you won't attack at all. This can be problematic, since the jump kick is the only way to dispose of certain enemies, and the best way to get rid of some others. It's also the most potent weapon in your arsenal, devastating even bosses by eliminating half their health in a single hit. It's true that this move has very specific and limited uses, but you really want to be able to do the move when you want to every time. However, the timing is pretty tight. Your other attack, the punch, is performed with the A button. This attack becomes more viable as you get more familiar with the game. As I said before, both attacks deal the same damage, so why would you use punches? Punches get you more points than kicks, but at the cost of range. This is actually a cool risk-reward system, but functionally, it matters little on the NES. If you were playing this game in the arcade, your score was your means to achieve immortality by leaving your initials on the machine. Arcade high scores were the Stone Age version of today's leaderboards. Is it just me, or were there a lot of guys named Alan Steve Smith back then? There is at least a small trace of why points matter on the home game. When you rack up 50,000 points, you get an extra life. After that, you're on your own, because you can only get one extra life this way. You can continue to challenge yourself, as I am in this video, by using punches, but there's rarely a reason to do so outside of running up the, now useless, score counter. Anyway, if you, like me, choose to foolishly use punches anyway, you can use them in the same positions as kicks, standing, ducking, and jumping. You will have to use crouching punches at one point throughout the game, and they greatly aid you at another, but other than that, feel free to go with kicks. Also, I've yet to find a use for jumping punches at all. They hit so high and are extremely unwieldy and generally useless. To top it off, they have the same timing issues as jump kicks, but even less utility. If you know of any way to use them, at all, feel free to leave it in the comments. I'd be glad to hear it. The most common type of enemy is the gripper. These are the pinkish purpley guys who just run at you, and if they reach you, they cling onto you and drain your life. Just wiggle around to break free before they do too much damage, or, better yet, punch or kick them before they have the chance. Next up is the knife thrower. Get this, he throws knives. He can throw them at two levels, low and high. Jump over the low ones and duck under the high ones. These guys should be your priority when they show up. They will actively pursue you if you run away and pelt you constantly. They also take evasive action when you approach them, so they can set back your progress when they appear behind you. Still, you'll want to take them out quickly. If you neglect them long enough, you may end up with one on each side. This is disastrous, and can actually lead to some situations in which you have no choice but to eat some damage. These guys also take 2 hits. Take them out as soon as you see them every time. Starting with Stage 2, you will encounter tom-toms. These are just more dangerous midget grippers. They can only be hit low, and every now and then, they'll decide to jump on your head instead. Go with low kicks to take them out at a distance, but if you see them jump, if you immediately jump in response, just the act of jumping will defeat them. They are another reason to prioritize knife throwers, since a high-thrown knife combined with a jumping tom-tom may mean that you must take damage. Stage 2 also presents some unique stage hazards. The most annoying, by far, are the snakes. Why did it have to be snakes? They'll fall from the ceiling in jars. You can kick the jars to destroy them, but once they hit the ground, they'll speed towards you. They're easy to jump over, but each hit consumes a third of your life, and if there's enough going on, they can get in hits on you pretty easily, so be careful. In Stage 2, we also get weird floating, exploding things. Supposedly they're confetti balls, but that makes little sense. Anyway, just jump kick them ASAP for an easy 1,000 points, and they won't have time to explode. If they do explode, they split into 3 pieces. Try to stand about 15 degrees to the left or right of them and duck so the pieces don't hit you. Also, take note that one piece flies straight down, so don't stay underneath them. Not to be outdone, Stage 2 gives us dragons as well. Like snakes, they fall from the ceiling. You can kick them as they fall, but you're better off waiting. Once they materialize, kick them for a huge score boost. But do it quickly, because they'll send some fire breath your way less than a second after spawning. Stage 4 presents a unique enemy of its own in the form of some strange bird thing. There are 4 holes in the wall from which they come. Don't stop running. Just jump kick the first, second, and last, and kick, then jump over the third, and you're home free. The first boss is a guy with a stick. He has some good reach, but goes down quickly. Jump kick him to eat half his health, then duck and kick till he dies if he's far away from you, or ducking punch till he dies if he's close. I should point out that all bosses in this game slowly regenerate if given the chance, so be aggressive and stay on them in order to prevent it. The second boss is functionally a souped-up knife thrower. Instead of knives, he throws boomerangs. These can hit on the way out and on the way back, and they're a little harder to read than the knives, but you fight him pretty much the same way. Duck the high boomerangs and jump the low ones. While he can have 2 of them on the screen at once, they move pretty slowly and really aren't that threatening, but take care to make sure there are no knife throwers around. You likely won't be able to dodge 3 active projectiles at once. The third boss is where things start to get interesting. Maybe it's because I know this game is based on a Jackie Chan movie, but this guy always vaguely reminds me of the tall guys from the movie theater fight in City Hunter. He does more damage than anything else in the game, so you'd better do away with him quickly. Thankfully, he's also a huge target. Open with a jump kick for half his life, then use a round of crouching punches to finish him off, hopefully before he can land a hit. The fourth boss is, by far, the most annoying enemy in the game. He's a wizard who can concoct a variety of spells, but it's very hard to see them coming. Like a knife thrower, they can be high or low, but some high attacks spawn the birds from level 4, which return for another high hit. Similarly, some low attacks are single shots, while others conjure snakes or dragons. To make matters worse, you can't hit his head or it'll fly off. As amusing as this is, it deals no damage to him. You must punch him in the stomach, which means you have to get and stay close to him. I stress that you have to stay close to him, because when he drops to half life, he teleports away. And may God have mercy on you if a knife thrower appears behind you during this fight. Thankfully, he requires only 4 hits, but they are very difficult hits to land. And now for the final boss, the creatively named Mr. X. For all the hype and the 2 taunting cutscenes, if you can call them that, this guy goes down super easily. He can dodge your attacks with this weird little bunny hop thing, so make sure you have a healthy number on the timer when you get here. That's honestly the biggest threat, the timer. Start by attempting a jump kick, and then, hit or miss, spam ducking kicks. Most of the time he'll dodge your kicks, but it ties him up so that he can't hit you back. Occasionally he'll inch his way into your foot and take a little damage. Rarely he will land a jump kick, but don't worry about it. His is nowhere near as powerful as yours. Spam your way to victory for an easy win. Upon beating the game, Thomas and Sylvia have a moment's happiness before Mr. X somehow manages to kidnap Sylvia again. This was the norm of arcade games back then, where you just played until you died. The game will repeat endlessly, adding 1 to the dragon indicator each time you complete the game, and it ups the difficulty accordingly. I have to debunk a crazy rumor that often floats around when this game comes up. It claims that after the 50th consecutive completion of the game, you actually fight Sylvia after Mr. X. I have no idea where this rumor came from, but it is purely a rumor and it has no basis in reality. The simplicity of this game sorta makes it the video game equivalent of riding a bicycle. No matter how long it's been since you last played it, you can pretty much always pick it right back up and play it again immediately. Before this video, I couldn't tell you how many years it had been since I played this title, but as you can see, I'm still fighting fit. If you find the game too easy, you can always select Game Mode B from the title screen for a harder arrangement of the game, but honestly, it's not really all that different from A. The graphics are large, but simple and repetitive. The game is missing a small degree of depth from the arcade, but it's not a big deal. The plainness of the background does make it seem like there are no walls in the pagoda, but for a black box title, it's hard to be too critical. There's not any slowdown or flicker, which are common NES problems. On the one hand, that may be because there aren't all that many sprites, and they have very little animation, but the game is capable of handling a decent amount of them on screen at the same time, and that is noteworthy. I can't be as kind to the audio though. There are only 4 total tracks in the game for music, 3 of which you hear only once each. You hear the music when you start the game once, the extra life jingle a single time, and when you die, you'll hear the game over music. The rest of the time, your ears will likely be tuning out the completely forgettable yet ever-present sole background piece of music that plays during the entirety of the game. It's not bad, but it doesn't add much to the game either. And again, it's the only song. Optionally, you can pause and then later unpause to hear the jingles associated with each. The sound effects are also very basic. Thomas has 3 battle cries. One is reserved for punches, the second for kicks, and the final one is for jumping attacks. Get used to them! Mr. X has a laugh track you will hear twice no matter what, but it also plays whenever you die at a boss. All bosses either reuse the Mr. X laugh or pitch shift it up or down. On the one hand, it is fun to hear Thomas's battle cries, and to be fair, the martial artist in me also appreciates this fine attention to detail, but on the other hand, the SFX get redundant very quickly. The fun factor is there, and it can be a great little game to blow off some steam, but let me remind you that this is a very short ride. You can find all kinds of videos of people speedrunning games to get through them as fast as possible. Let's just say that this game is almost a de facto speedrunning game just because it's already so short. Seriously, on a good day, I can play through this entire game 3 times while listening to Inagata Davida. So, is this game worth the price of admission? Right now, it goes for about $8. You could argue that this game is an important piece of gaming history, helping to pave the way for more in-depth brawlers like Double Dragon or Final Fight, but on its own, you could probably do better for $8. It is what it is, which is fun, but very simple and very short. You just saw me plow through the whole game 3.5 times after having not touched it for a few years. Use your best judgment and decide. Thanks for watching. You can't fool me, Mr. X. I know your secret identity. Bald Bull.